What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to Creating Cash Flow, where I take my portfolio from $0 in passive income earnings to much, much more. And today we're going to be talking about ChatGPT, which has taken over the world, honestly, ever since it launched in November. It was the fastest company to reach 1 million users, and I believe it did it in just 5 days. So today we're going to be talking about how to get investment advice from ChatGPT. Then next we're going to see if that advice is any good. And finally, I'm going to show you my plan to use ChatGPT to make me more passive income earnings in 2023. Also, if you don't mind, my mom is going to make me move out of her apartment or cut my hair if I don't have 1,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So please help me out. That is a joke, but I would thoroughly appreciate a subscription and or a like. Thank you. So if you actually ask ChatGPT for financial advice, much like me, it's not a financial advisor, so it will give you some bogus statement about how it can't give it to you. But it will say that you can find some resources online to learn more about entrepreneurship and investing. But if you ask in a different way, you can get a pretty interesting response. What are the highest performing dividend ETFs? You can see here that it spits out 5 high performing dividend ETFs. Now, it doesn't take everything into account. So I guess this is my quick disclaimer that just like I'm not a financial advisor, ChatGPT is also not a financial advisor, and I don't know that it takes into account everything to think about when choosing an ETF that you want to invest in. So let's run through this list and see how good this advice actually is. And we're going to be looking at this based on 3 different criteria. One is the performance over the past 5 years, the second is the dividend payout, and third is the expense ratio. So the first one is VIG, which is a Vanguard Dividend Appreciation Index Fund, and one that I'm not personally invested in yet, but I want to be. So let's check it out. So over the past 5 years, we've seen an increase of 45.95% just on the appreciation of the ETF price. So that in itself looks really, really good as performing over the past 5 years. Now, if I jump over here to the Vanguard website, we're going to look at this expense ratio, which is 0.06%, which is extremely low. Vanguard is known for having the lowest maintenance or the lowest overhead, lowest fee index funds. And so that's one thing that gets me really excited about this is that's a low expense ratio. And the quarterly payout dividend yield is sitting at 1.92%. Next suggestion was DVY, so iShares Select Dividend ETF. And over the past 5 years, this has also seen pretty good growth, not nearly as good as VIG, but we've seen a 23.02% increase over the past 5 years. So if you bought it 5 years ago, you would have been buying it at 100, and it's currently valued at 123. So that doesn't tell the full story, but it does look like it's been around 120-ish or higher for the past year and a half or more. So that's probably closer to the steadier place that it's going to sit, and we don't see a ton of growth with this ETF. But with this ETF, we do see a much higher dividend yield. So the 30-day SEC yield here is 3.47%. So this is pretty common with dividend yields. The higher the dividend yield, usually the less the stock or the ETF actually appreciates. So we're seeing that here with 3.47% dividend yield. And if you scroll down a little bit, you're going to be able to see the fees. So the management fee or the expense ratio here is 0.38. So again, much, much higher. Taking a look at the next recommendation, which is SCHD. And if you haven't seen it yet, my best video ever created, according to YouTube, is about the SCHD Dividend Equity ETF. This is the Schwab US Dividend ETF. So if you haven't seen that video, you can click on one of these sides and it'll take you to my most viewed video. Anyway, the appreciation of SCHD is similar to that of VIG. Over the past 5 years, we've seen a 46.42% increase in just, again, the appreciation of the ETF. And diving into this, looking at the dividend yield, you can see that here the 30-day SEC yield is 3.38%. So this is a kind of a combo of VIG and DVY, because you can see here that there's a pretty high payout, very similar to that of DVY, but also the growth over the past 5 years is killing it. It's growing like VIG, which has the lower payout. So here, based on the three we've looked at so far, SCHD looks like a really great option. But let's look at the expense ratio. And boom, we found it. The expense ratio right here is 0.06. So it's the same expense ratio as VIG, which is, again, extremely low. And that's great news. Finally, let's look at NOBL, which is ProShares S&P 500 Dividend Aristocrats ETF, which honestly I had not heard of before I did this video. So I'm also learning here as we go. Over the past 5 years, there is a large bump. We're looking at a 40% increase in appreciation of, again, just the ETF, which doesn't take into account the dividend yield and the expense ratio. So let's go look into those as well. And here we see a distribution yield of 2.02. So a little bit lower than SCHD and also a little bit lower than DVY, but still higher than VIG. So 2.02 isn't bad. You actually get more than that out of a high interest yield savings account right now, which is another video that didn't get the love from YouTube I thought it deserved, but I'll link that here as well if you want to go check out that, which currently has a return of 3.3%, which that is really nice. Every time I check my finances every month, it's nice getting like $100 check, you know, sometimes more, doing absolutely nothing. This is that passive income life that we're trying to build. I'm clearly on one today. I'm very excited to be back. This is my first video back this year. So go ahead, smash that like button. Thank you for watching. But I realized I should have compared this to the SEC 30-day yield, because that's what we've been talking about on the other ETFs. And this is a 2, so 0.02 lower. Which that's just something to be thinking about. And then the expense ratio here is 0.35%, but there's an asterisk and I don't know what that means. So let's look into it. I can't find out what that asterisk means. So if you know what that means, or if you can find it online, go ahead and put in the comments down below. I am learning here too and just sharing what I'm learning, but based on a number of other websites, I can confirm that the expense ratio is 0.35%. At least that's what about 3 other sources told me. Okay, so should you be using ChatGPT as a financial advisor? I mean, it came up with what I think are 2 really good ETFs, and the other 2, they're interesting to look at and at least compare the other ones against. But VIG and SCHD, I personally want to invest and plan to invest in both of them, even though I haven't as of yet. The other 2, based on the expense ratios, the growth over the past 5 years, again, you never know what the future holds, but the past is often a good indicator of the future, not always. And the expense ratio and the performance over the past 5 years, they're not as interesting to me as SCHD and VIG. So from there, and this is a transition into how I'm going to use ChatGPT in 2023 to help make me passive income. Based on the information that you get, you can use that as a starting line. I think it's a great place to go get an idea of what is out there, what is on the market. So whether you use it in your daily job, you're asked to create a report on analytics tools, or you're asked to create a report on, I just had to use it for analytics tool at my company. So that's where I'm coming from with that one. But basically, it's a great place to go get an idea and get your brain flowing. So if you create content, if you have to generate reports, anything like that, this is a great baseline. So take it to ChatGPT, ask it, and rather than you starting out cold with no research, you can start out with a whole idea of what is out there in the market and where you should start looking, and maybe some key indicators you should start paying attention to. So not only can you use it as a baseline, you can use it to cross-check your recommendations. So basically, if I come to you guys and say, hey, these are my favorite ETFs and I want to make a video about how to invest in real estate, how to buy a house, all of that, I can go do all of my own research. And that's all good and great, but I might have missed something. I might have overlooked something. So I can take that same question or the same concept and take that to ChatGPT and say, how do I buy a house in 2023? What's the best companies to use as a mortgage? Like, you can start, and it might not answer these questions directly, so you find different ways around it to ask it to list maybe like top rated mortgage companies, or something like that, to at least compare and contrast your own research against something else. And if it spits out something new, like it did today, I hadn't heard about Noble, N-O-B-L, before, and so that just gives me another point of reference to say, hey, look, SCHD really is that much better. And with that point of reference, you can just keep learning more, which is what this is all about. So rather than get intimidated, my very first thought when I saw ChatGPT was, I got intimidated, like, oh my gosh, it's not ready yet, but very soon it's gonna be able to do real human jobs way better than humans can. At like this feels like a huge leap from Siri and Alexa to wow, like real interaction of something that's actually smart and intelligent, artificial intelligence. It has a long way to go, but it is headed in the right direction, which, rather than be scared and intimidated, you have to have the mindset of, well, I have free access to this robot army. Like, I don't know how it works, but it's the idea you can have access to information at your fingertips in a way that's never been accessed before. With Google, you can find anything that you want, which is really cool, but it's actually someone else's work, where this is just the work of a robot. And so you can really use this to propel and rocket ship what you want to do forward. I've started using it here with my YouTube channel, so please let me know how the content is. Keep comments coming, because I want to come up with a bunch of research on that I'm finding out for myself, and then I compare and contrast with what this artificial intelligence can find, and I try and bring all of that together, the best of it all together, to then come and deliver to you, and so it can impact my portfolio and hopefully yours in a positive way. So with that, thank you again so much for watching. I truly, truly appreciate it. And if you subscribe, thank you. That's incredibly nice. And with that, remember that what you focus on grows. So focus on those things that will get you what you want. It can keep you focused on your goals. Thanks again for watching. See ya.